restrictions in Peel, while Ontario activates its emergency brake, sending 2 other regions back into lockdown. We'll tell you which ones. Plus,
it'll benefit, not just our community, but others who are facing barriers.
Support for a new recommendation from Ontario's COVID-19 Advisory Board that calls for prioritizing vaccine shots not only by age, but by neighborhoods disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And
that she was looking for help. She was looking for assistance from the police because she was in crisis.
The death of a woman in an Etobicoke park is now being investigated as a homicide. We'll have the latest from the scene. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Changes to restrictions are coming to several parts of the province on Monday. Thunder Bay and Simcoe Muskoka will be moving into lockdown. Health officials in those regions have been urging the province to move them from the red zone into the more restrictive gray lockdown zone due to a rise in COVID-19 cases. Now, meanwhile, restrictions will be loosened in the Niagara region, which will move out of lockdown and into the red zone. Chatham-Kent, Middlesex, London, and Southwestern health units will move into the orange restrict zone. Haldimand, Norfolk, and Huron-Perth will move into the yellow protect zone. And Grey Bruce will be moving into the green zone, the least restrictive level in the province's color-coded system. Now, as for Peel and Toronto, they will remain under a stay-at-home order until at least March 8th. Last night, the Region Council of Peel voted unanimously to support a motion by the mayors of Mississauga, Caledon, and Brampton that recommends the region move directly into the red zone, skipping the more restrictive gray zone. Now, that, of course, is dependent on the province lifting the stay-at-home order come March 8th. Now, moving into the red zone would allow for the opening of restaurants, non-essential retail, gyms, and hair salons, with capacity limits, of course. It would also allow for indoor gatherings of up to 5 people and outdoor gatherings with up to 25 people. Brampton Mayor Patrick Bound says it makes sense for Peel and Toronto to move into the red zone.
Our case counts continue to decline. Our hospital capacity has been the best that it's been in 6 months. And the reality is you can't divide the GTA. Right now, you have segments of the GTA that are open, segments that are closed, and it just creates mass migration where we have residents in Mississauga and Brampton and Toronto going to Markham and Vaughan and Oakville. The GTA is interconnected, so you really can't slice it apart.
However, Toronto Mayor John Tory says the city is still unsure what to recommend the province. He says city officials are watching the case counts closely, but at the moment it's still too early to say what would be the best step.
There's some real concerns that have been, put in front of us with respect to the activity of these variants. So, I think you have to sort of take this as it comes. And I think we're going to be into some very intensive discussions, which we've been having all the way along. Some very intensive discussions next week as we approach the date.
Tory calls it a balancing act, weighing the number of cases, concerns over the virus variants, and of course the needs of businesses, which have really been struggling. He says he doesn't want to loosen restrictions, only to have to revert back to a lockdown down the road. Health Canada has now approved AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine for all adults 18 years and older.
In other words, we now have a third safe and effective vaccine independently approved by health experts in Canada. This is very encouraging news. It means more people vaccinated and sooner. Because for AstraZeneca, like we were for Pfizer and Moderna, we're ready to get doses rolling.
Like Pfizer and Moderna, this is a 2-dose vaccine to be administered 4 to 12 weeks apart. But unlike the other 2, this vaccine can be stored in a regular fridge. It does have a lower efficacy rate, though, at 62%. And some countries like France have restricted the AstraZeneca vaccine to people under 65 years of age. But Health Canada says there are no immediate safety concerns for older adults. With all 3 vaccine shipments combined, Canada is now set to receive about 6.5 million doses by the end of March. In total, Canada has secured access to 22 million doses from AstraZeneca. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says the AstraZeneca approval means more people will get a vaccine sooner in Ontario, but he says he still has questions that need to be answered.
I think it's the best news we've heard in a real long time, and the 2 questions we need answered is when we're getting it and how much we're getting. but we're geared up, we're ready to go, and just can't wait to get the third vaccine, and looking forward to possibly a fourth or fifth vaccine as well.
Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table has made an important new recommendation. It is calling for the province to prioritize vaccine shots based not just on age, but on neighborhoods hardest hit by the pandemic. Chris Glover with more.
Along with age, where you live is a strong predictor of whether you'll get sick and die from COVID. And soon, both age and home address could impact when you'll get a vaccine.
Looking at, populations from an equity lens is really going to have a huge impact, a positive impact to help, flatten the curve and hopefully help improve health outcomes.
Michelle Weston with the Black Creek Community Health Center knows firsthand many factors make people in some neighborhoods more vulnerable, including the percentage of essential workers with low income and precarious jobs. She applauds the idea of getting vaccines to them sooner.
It underscores the difference between equality and equity.
The Science Advisory Table crunched a year's worth of public health data, finding people from those red neighborhoods with the highest rates of infection also saw more hospitalizations and deaths. In a new report, the Advisory Table says during the next phase of vaccinations, people in the hardest hit neighborhoods should get access to vaccines even before older counterparts in neighborhoods less impacted by COVID.
Individuals who are aged 50 to 60 actually have a higher risk of death than those individuals 80 and above in the lower risk neighborhoods.
Prioritizing by age and home address instead of just age will save the healthcare system and save lives. Their modeling projects it would prevent about 3,800 infections between March 1st and May 31st. More than 700 hospital admissions, 145 ICU admissions, and 168 COVID deaths would be prevented.
We have an obligation when we're given a precious resource like a vaccine to follow the data and the evidence and to use this precious tool to save the most amount of lives possible.
Certain age groups and certain neighborhoods are at much higher risk, and we want to be able to respond to that.
Earlier this week, the head of Ontario's vaccine task force said he wanted to take advantage of the advisory table's research, but no announcement yet whether the recommendation will be part of the official plan.
I really do, hope that this does get passed through because it'll benefit, not just our community, but others who are facing barriers.
And help prevent the contagious variants from overwhelming hospitals if a third wave hits Ontario next month. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Police are investigating the case of a woman found dead in an Etobicoke park as a homicide. Police say they responded to the area of Bloor Street West and Kings Mill Park at 10:47 this morning after a woman in crisis contacted them for help.
And they found a woman in her 60s. She was suffering from significant injuries. Unfortunately, she was pronounced vital signs absent. We're still investigating what the possible motive of this could have been, whether the perpetrator had any relationship to the victim.
The forensic team will continue canvassing the area through the night and into the morning. Police have not yet released any suspect information. Well, now to a case that keeps developing, from a missing person search to a fatal police shooting to the discovery of human remains. And today, Toronto police laid a murder-related charge. 59-year-old Orson York has been charged with accessory after the fact to murder, in addition to a previous charge. And while police still haven't identified the victim, her family has, holding a vigil for her tonight. Angelina King was there.
Dozens of people coming by the vigil tonight to pay their respects, lighting candles, dropping off flowers outside of the same apartment building where police discovered human remains earlier this week. Officers say DNA testing is still being done, so they're not publicly identifying the victim, but family and friends say 32-year-old Amanda Killeen is the victim. She leaves behind 3 children, and families say that she always put them first. Now, a lot has happened to get us to this point. I just want to walk you through it. So police were working on a missing persons investigation, which led them to this apartment building earlier this week. But sources tell CBC News before they arrived, blood was found inside of the building, and security footage captured 2 men walking garbage bags outside of the apartment, and what appeared to be a body part had fallen out of one of those bags. So officers went and knocked on a particular unit in the building. Inside, a man was there with an edged weapon. Some sort of altercation happened and police shot and killed that man. Colleen's mother previously told CBC News that is Colleen's ex-boyfriend, and the SIU is investigating that. But today, police announced a charge of accessory after the fact to murder has been laid against a different man who was previously charged with offering an indignity to a human body. Officers say that their investigation is fast moving. There's a lot of layers. They're looking at different locations across the city. They're asking anybody with information, even if it seems trivial or small, to come forward. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Registration is now open for Cafe TO. Mayor John Tory says he has high hopes for the program this year.
It's going to be streamlined. We're accepting applications starting today, and we want there to be way more than the 801 restaurants that were helped last year and much more spread out right across the city.
Cafe TO got its start last year to allow restaurants and bars to open patios in curb lanes and along sidewalks. The City of Toronto is hoping to have the curb lanes installed as early as mid-May, pending public health orders. The mayor says he wants to see locations up and running for the May 2-4 weekend. Registration will open until March 26. Some residents in the Stockyards neighborhood may actually not be looking forward to spending time outdoors when the weather warms up. That's because a new meat packing plant is opening in the area. As Jessica Ng reports, they're concerned this will impact their health and safety.
There's some activity today at the Stockyards facility that's been rebranded as True Harvest Meats. The site was previously occupied by Riding Regency meat packers before the Canadian Food Inspection Agency canceled their operating license in December 2019. The facility on Glen Scarlett Road is scheduled to reopen Monday, with new additions that will make it one of the largest meat processing plants in the province. It's not sitting well with residents like David Beveridge, who moved his young family to the area 4 years ago.
Have been cited in the past, and they, tell us that they have filters on the smokestacks coming out of it. But I don't actually know it's safe. I don't know what's coming out of that and how far it's drifting.
He's not the only one who has voiced his concern. York Southwestern MPP Faisal Hassan even bringing up the issue Thursday at Queen's Park.
The previous slaughterhouse was closed and had its license revoked to many health and environmental violations. An environmental compliance approval was granted to the farmer owners despite nearly 100 complaints in public consultations in 2018. How did this new facility get approved, and why was the community not consulted?
According to federal records, there were numerous food recalls related to E. coli in various beef and veal products originating from the plant. During the investigation, it was noted that the company was not compliant and provided false or misleading information to investigators, leading to their 2019 license cancellation.
With the federal government and provincial government, they can issue licenses, and there's no consultation, which is unfortunate because I don't think that's fair, but that's what's happened.
Nunziata says the land has been in the process of being rezoned for years, but its use must be discontinued in order to proceed. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, a heartwarming story from south of the border. Cold weather in Texas created a life-threatening situation for sea turtles. But thanks to the tireless work of volunteers, the turtles got a second chance at life. Our Colette Kennedy will have more on that, plus your weekend forecast. Colette?
Yes, we definitely have some wet weather coming in this weekend. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy, but with some mild temperatures plus some dry parts to the weekend, it could just turn into a gem. I'll have all the details coming up after the break.
A clear evening with a bit of light snow developing overnight. Currently 1 degree downtown. Lots of weather to get to with a soggy weekend ahead. But first, we want to share with you a heartwarming story from Texas. We've been following the aftermath of the brutal cold in Texas, causing power outages and water issues. But it's been really hard on wildlife, too, leading to the largest cold stun of sea turtles in history. Let's go now to our Colette Kennedy. And Colette, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So it is the largest. About 5,000 sea turtles almost have been affected. And a cold stun, so what happens is that cold air, just like it affects humans, it affects the water temperature goes down and the sea turtles become almost like they're in a coma. So they can't use their fins and they float to the surface. And then their instincts are telling them, raise your head, breathe, take a breath, but they can't physically move. So they can't do that. So it can be devastating. However, some wonderful volunteers here from many areas, including South Padre Island there, Corpus Christi, but specifically from Sea Turtle Inc. is one of the ones who really helped with the rehabilitation. They collected as many of these turtles as they could. It turns out to be thousands. And then they rehabilitated them. And just imagine without power. So, having to use generators, keeping them warm and such. And then over the last few days, this is the heartwarming good news part of it, is of course they've been able to be released back into the waters because the temperature has come up. It needs to be about 13 degrees Celsius. And I know they're not really smiling, but it certainly seems like from some of these images that it looks as though those turtles are smiling. So happy to get back out there and so happy that we have people like this in the world helping out. University of Texas also involved in this, their Marine Science Center and the aquarium in Texas too. So that warm air that has actually moved in and is giving them a bit of a break there. Well, how about some warm air coming our way? A very mild weekend ahead, but with some messy weather to start it off. So we get into a mix after a beautiful day today. Overnight tonight, we're going to start to see it as a wet snow and then changing a little freezing rain even possible before the temperature rises tomorrow morning, turns it over to a rain event. Could see a couple of centimeters, very slushy before that, but by afternoon, I actually think we're going to have a nice second part to the day Saturday. Could turn into a gem, actually. It's cloudy, showers into Sunday, but still, both days we're talking about very mild temperatures. Now, for today, we were up to 3 degrees, Oshawa to 2. We're going to more than double those numbers. You can see how it kind of comes in overnight tonight. Still some significant rainfall in the morning hours. 2 p.m., not only is it gone and moved eastward, still affecting Kingston in that region, but getting into some of these breaks, so the sun coming through as well. So that goes along with some strong southwesterly winds, but still. Then it's kind of showery into Sunday, sort of off and on. It's not going to be a rain out all day, but spotty in nature, coming back in the evening after some showers earlier. Temperatures overnight tonight, you can see they'll be coming up. So for southwestern Ontario too, already you're dealing with some of this. And again, turning mostly over to rainfall tomorrow afternoon. Sarnia 9 degrees, winds are 8, just a beautiful way to get into Saturday afternoon and into your weekend. Tonight, the temperature is a little cooler in Markham, but again, they're right around the freezing mark. They're actually coming up as we go towards those early morning hours, and by the time we get to the afternoon, yeah, you're reading that correctly. Some gorgeous temperatures that we're going to be having. St. Catharines, 9 degrees, maybe double digits there. There you go into Sunday. A cold shot comes in Monday night. You're going to feel that one just because we won't be used to it. Kelda?
Hey, thanks so much, Colette. And it's so nice to see those sea turtles released back into the water.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
It's not your typical reading material, but to 66-year-old Fred Meandro, flipping through the pages of his phone book collection takes him on a trip through time.
Looked up hotels, I looked up automobiles, I looked up theaters, introductory pages, tourist pages.
We'll show you his collection and tell you how his phone book journey started, coming up. Welcome back. For most of us, our phone books are, well, in our phones. But for one man, he's had to make room for dozens of them in his Toronto condo. Fred Meandro has been collecting actual phone books since he was 14 years old. And as he explains to Tally Ricci, you can learn a lot about a city by flipping through them.
I just love the design of them. I love the structure of them. I look up hotels, I look up automobiles, I look up theaters, introductory pages, tourist pages. For a person that's interested in the visual, the yellow pages are always more interesting. An ostrich feather specialist. My name is Fred Meandro, and I'm here because I collect old Toronto telephone books.
How many phone books do you have?
I have quite a few. I have almost 50 on Toronto, covering from the Victorian to the current ones, all the decades of the 20th century.
I've met a lot of collectors, but never a collector of phone books. Is this a pretty rare type of collection?
Yes, it is. I don't think there's too many people out there that do this, but I've been doing this since I was a teenager. It all started at the Sudbury Public Library when I worked there as a student, and they were tossing the old ones out. I asked if I could have them. They said I could, so I took them home, and then it just kind of grew from there. Look at this one. This one is the oldest I have. It's from 1891. It has a couple of pages of ads. It's very fragile, and I ended up paying quite a bit of money for it.
How much?
It was $450 in 1997. And I also have one here that is from June of 1912. There's a name here, Arthur Peuchen. He lived at 599 Jarvis Street, and he was known to have survived the Titanic sinking. This is from 1932, and it has a map of Ontario. It has some interesting taxi ads. The taxis seem to have pages at the front where they had full pages.
And so what is it that fascinates you about phone books?
For me, I've always been interested in urban studies and cities and big cities, and the telephone directories through the decades reflected the growth and development of the city. I have had many people over the years ask me to look up the old telephone books to look for family addresses. They were interested in finding out the old numbers, like the old phone numbers. Even as a kid, when we used to get ours every year, I would look through it and to see how much it grew and how many more pages there were in it. And it's just, that's how I was, me. My parents couldn't understand it.
There's value in them as just historical documents. As a researcher, we use phone books and old city directories, which are a very similar type of a product, almost on a daily basis. Sometimes there'll be address information published there. You can get a sense of where people lived. You can get a sense of what businesses were in operation.
But I guess eventually I will have to sell them. I cannot keep them forever. Nobody in my family really wants them. If somebody wants these, I just want them to have the passion for enjoying them and treating them well, like I did.
And that's our show for you tonight and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can get caught up on our website anytime. Head to cbc.ca/Toronto. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.